This is the Mets Rewind Podcast, making baseball history every day.
Welcome to the Mets Rewind Podcast. I'm your host, John Struble. Subscribe and support Mets Rewind on Substack at metsrewind.substack.com. Today we welcome Dennis Cook to the show. Happy belated birthday, Dennis. I saw on social media you recently celebrated number 60?
Yep, I'm very blessed to have made it this far, so I appreciate you saying that.
How does a 60th birthday celebration compare to like a 25 or 30-year-old celebration? You
know, we had a good time. My wife threw me a surprise party, and I had a lot of guys that I played with here at the University of Texas that was at our house, and we just had a great time catching up and visiting.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and catching up with some old friends and old players.
Talking about the old times.
Yeah, and the tales get bigger as the years go by, don't they?
They tend to, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got to get this question out of the way right up front, and we'll talk about your career. So I'm scrolling through your player profile and stuff that's available on the internet, which is frightening in and of itself. But I discovered a baseball card of yours from the Indians in 1993, I think it was. Are you familiar with the card I'm talking about with the bat?
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite cards. It's the story behind that is it was, you know how media day is. They show up and you go through all these stations and people, at least it used to be that way.
Right.
And, you know, all the card companies would take your picture, you'd pose. And I had enough of it. So towards the end, I just started acting a fool and that ended up on a card. It actually is one of my favorite cards. That's the one that all the kids like to talk about.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your Mets career. You were traded to the Mets prior to the 1998 season. When you reported to spring training, your wife had just given birth to triplets like a month before. So here you are, Dennis, in New York for the first time with the Mets. And you have a brand new family, not one, not two, but three new children. How did you balance life and baseball at that time?
She actually gave birth on the 26th of February.
Okay.
And I was like 10 days to almost 2 weeks late for spring training. And the Mets were awesome. They just said, stay home, take care of your business. So the kids were born and I spent 2 nights with them in the hospital and then I left. And I didn't get to see them again for, it had to have been at least a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, it was tough. But you know what? The offseason, I knew going in that it was going to be probably a late arrival for me with a new team. And I wanted to make sure I showed up and respected that commitment that the Mets had made to me about giving me some time off. And I showed up actually the best shape of my life and had a great year.
But here it is 24 years later, Dennis. What are your children doing now? They're all grown up.
First of all, they're wonderful kids, and we're very, very proud of all three of them. 2 of them, one of my sons and my daughter graduated from Ole Miss, and my other son played baseball at TCU and graduated from TCU. Nice. And then my son that graduated from Ole Miss, Dawson, he got his master's degrees from the University of Texas. They're all three living here in Austin and working and living on their own, and they come home every Sunday. Actually, today, I just got back from the grocery store. They come home every Sunday, and I cook dinner, and everybody comes home, and we get to spend 3 or 4 hours together as a family.
You are listening to the Mets Rewind Podcast. Former Mets reliever Dennis Cook has joined us on the show. The late 90s, early 2000 Mets, the teams you were a part of, real exciting times to be a Met fan. Some amazing games. I want to bring up just a few of those games, and I want to get your perspective of the moment and where you were when that event happened. You were there for the Ventura walk-off single or grand slam, whatever they call it. Where were you when he hit that ball, and what was that experience like being in Shea Stadium, which had a reputation of rocking in big games?
You know, it's just all wins are big, but you get one like that, and there's something that'll stick out in your head. And I probably was in the bullpen or on the bench. I don't remember exactly where I was.
How about the Todd Pratt walk-off home run against the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, I was in the bullpen for that one. I remember that one very well.
Yeah.
I actually think I was getting loose to possibly go into the game in that bottom half. Man, I'm so happy for Todd. Just, another one, great teammate. and, cherished his role as Mike's backup, and couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Mets and Padres at Citi Field this weekend for the NL Wild Card. And I think back on those days when you were pitching with the Mets and what the environment was like at Shea Stadium. Can you describe pitching at Shea Stadium in the postseason and really what that atmosphere and environment was like?
There is nothing like postseason baseball. I just told my wife the other day, I think it was on Friday morning, right before everybody start the playoffs. I told her, I said, this is when I miss baseball, because I love postseason baseball. I love pitching in the big games and all that. Shea Stadium is always a great environment.
Yep.
You're so lucky to be into that position, because a lot of guys play a long time and never get a chance to pitch in the postseason. Pressure's high, but I love that. I love that feeling.
You did. You thrived when the stakes got higher. I mean, I was looking at your postseason stats alone over your career, Dennis, and your slash line. You pitched in 19 postseason games, had a 2-0 record. You pitched 16.1 innings, 0 runs, not even an unearned run, 5 hits, and 16 strikeouts. You really rose to the occasion in the postseason.
I think a lot of that stems from, I played at the University of Texas, and we went to the College World Series every year. And, I was a hitter back then, but I love the chance to play for something. And, the big thing, I think, for me, in the postseason, my biggest concern was always is I don't want to let my teammates down. It wasn't so much about, I want to go shine. I was just really did not want to let my teammates down.
I don't know if you saw this just yesterday. They were talking to Mets pitcher Chris Bassett, who arrived in New York this season after pitching in Oakland for the previous 6. And he said pitching in New York is an absolute gauntlet. In your experience, pitching in New York, is it a different thing?
I think with some players, I never felt that way. I'm fortunate. I'm deaf in one ear. So literally I can only hear half of what people are screaming at me. And if you're on my other bad side, I don't hear a word you say. So, I never really experienced that being overwhelmed or a gauntlet. There's people pay money. Yeah. And this is no knock against the Bassett kid.
Sure. No.
I never experienced that. I felt like I thrived in that kind of environment.
You certainly did. Did you read media stories, or would you intentionally avoid reading what was written in the media and what was being said?
I always read the newspapers. I love the newspapers up in New York. I think a lot of times, like you were talking about the big series in the regular season, I think that's a lot more hyped by the fans and the media than the players.
Yeah.
It's just another series to us that we're trying to win. The tension and the pressure ratchets up as the playoffs start. And, if you're trying to get a series late in the year to try to win the division.
Dennis Cook is our guest on the MetsRewind podcast. Intensity was a big part of your pedigree, remembering watching you pitch. You would get really intense. Where did that intensity come from for you, Dennis? Was it a tactic you used to motivate yourself, or?
First of all, I love to compete. And second of all, I never felt like I was that good. And if I went out there where I wasn't 100% focused and ready to go, that I wasn't going to be very good. So I just really needed to have that edge every time I pitched. And, I've kind of always competed that way. And I wasn't going to stop when I got there. So it's just, for me, it was just an edge that I had to have. It was easy for me to have every night. I could just show up at the ballpark. That's why I was a way better reliever than a starter, because I would have to sit around for 4 days in between starts. And so I could show up as a reliever and think every day I got a chance to pitch.
So you think, playing from a deficit, playing from an uphill battle all the time, that actually helped motivate you to become a better pitcher?
No, 100%. Listen, I had a high school coach tell me one time, he was a basketball coach, and he told me, he goes, you'll never amount to nothing. And I wear that kind of stuff on my shoulder and my sleeve. In college, people tell me, don't go to Texas. You'll never play there. From the junior college I went to, and I transferred in, and I played just about every game there as a hitter and in right field. Pitched a little bit, but more so a right fielder. I was drafted in the 18th round, almost got released my first spring training. So listen, I never took anything for granted. I never assumed I was going to make a team, no matter if I was on a 3-year contract, guaranteed money. I showed up ready to pitch. I busted my rear end in the off season, and I made sure I did good by my commitment to the team.
I just realized, Dennis, you and I have a lot in common. What you said, that high school baseball coach, and what he said to you about you'll never amount to nothing. When I was young, and I'm sharing this for the first time publicly, my mother told me when I graduated high school and I took a year off before I went to college because I didn't know what I want to do, she said, you'll never be anything more than a dishwasher. That's what she said.
That's something.
Yeah, but those kind of things, you can use that to a positive force, or you can use that and let it drag you down. When you said that, it really clicked with me. I'm like, Dennis and I would relate to that same thing, and it's what motivates you and drives you and builds some of your character.
Yeah, first of all, I'm sorry that happened. But listen, I'm telling you, you were absolutely right. You can either use that to say, okay, well, just sit back and watch, or you can settle for that being the anchor that drags you down.
Yeah.
I've never, ever, ever doubted that I was going to do something. I didn't know what it was going to do, but I was going to do something. Our goals changed. I wanted to be a big league baseball player. I was a big league baseball player. Now my goals are whenever I was playing, I want to be a great husband and I want to be a great dad.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than just, people's definition of success are so different.
Yes, without a doubt. What does success mean to you? What does it look like? Not what the world tells us success looks like. Who taught you most about playing the game of baseball? You played as a position player, but you were a great hitter too, even at the major league level when you became a pitcher. You hit like 264 for your career. So growing up, as you're learning to play the game of baseball and all those fundamental rules and all those foundational things, were there mentors in your life?
Back when we were kids, John, right? There wasn't anything called select baseball or private instructors. Right. I learned how to play baseball by throwing a tennis ball against a brick wall.
Amen.
And then playing long toss in the side yard every day with my best friend, just messing around, playing catch because we love playing catch. When I got older, I had a high school coach that really instilled a lot of belief in me. His name is Dale Westmoreland. He and I still talk regularly.
Great.
Wonderful, wonderful man. And I really owe a lot to him. He actually is the one that was the person that pushed me, because coming out of high school, I didn't have a chance to go play anywhere. And he drove us to a tryout camp at Blaine Junior College. And he drove like 4 of the kids off the high school team. And we were actually going to go join the Marine Corps. Me and my 2 best friends had already talked to the recruiter and signed on the buddy plan and get like an extra $200 for signing as a buddy plan. And he said, before you guys sign that with military, let's go to this trial camp in Brenham, Texas. And he took us up there, and I literally played catch through like a little flat ground. And Angelina Junior College, Bill Berry, another one of my mentors, came up to me and offered me a full scholarship to come to Lufkin, Texas and play at a JUCO baseball. And it was awesome. I really thrived there. He taught me how to hit. Being around baseball players and good people and just made me love it even more than I already did.
As a pitcher, did teammates ever share intel on opponents' like tendencies, like their weaknesses? Or is that one of those unwritten baseball rules that you don't share other information?
They would share anything if the chance to win.
Okay.
Had an opportunity to win, and they were on your team. The unwritten rule is if you're on the same team as that guy and then you go tell the other team how to get him out.
Oh yeah.
Then that's a no-no. But if the guy's on your team and he's got info to beat the team that just got rid of him or traded him, heck yeah, they'll spill that. But most of the time, we as pitchers, we have a good idea of how we want to get guys out, and we're going to pitch to our strengths. And and most of us think that our strengths are better than the hitter's strengths, even if they're the same location or same pitch. So we're going to stick with our strengths and go from there.
Can you talk about baseball's unwritten rules? We hear about baseball's unwritten rules all the time, but we don't know what they are unless you're an actual baseball player. I'm not talking about talking in specifics and naming players. I'm just talking about, can you give some timeless examples of what a baseball unwritten rule is if you were a player going into the major leagues?
Well, I can tell you this. I think the rules have definitely changed a bunch between when I played the way the guys play now.
Sure.
The pimping the home runs and, the screaming at the hitters when you strike somebody out. I mean, that was never done back when we played. And I think a lot of that is the way things are run now in the minor league systems. You don't have guys that were professionals teaching the kids how to be professionals when they're in rookie ball and A ball. They just let them frickin' freelance and go do their thing and jump around and all that stuff. So for me, that's something that I'd like to see changed, is start getting some old baseball guys back in the game and teach the kids how to be more professional.
Yeah, because it was a price to pay if you were doing that pimping stuff back in the 90s. You're going to get hit. You got drilled. Yeah. I mean, and they knew it. They knew it going in. They wanted to show you up that the next time they were going to get drilled. And they hit by pitch also. I remember playing in Florida, and Sheffield was our big guy, and we were playing Colorado, and they had Galarraga, and they kept buzzing Sheffield and hit him a couple times. And finally, the managers would walk by and go, "I'm sick and tired of freaking Sheffield getting knocked on his rear end." So, that was all we needed to know. So whenever Galarraga came up, I had to hit him. Just because, they're hitting our guys, kind of like hockey. You don't hit the good guy on the team. You got to let him play. Yep.
And it was kind of that way too. So you protected your teammates. There was nothing that needed to be said. It was, you just knew that, hey, that's enough of that. So we got to do something to stop it.
In a larger picture, Dennis, is baseball a significantly different looking and feeling game to you now when you watch it?
Oh man, it's not even the same game.
Really?
That's not even the same game.
Better or worse?
For me, it's worse.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to sit there and watch somebody strike out 20 times a game?
Amen.
And I like watching pitchers pitch.
Yep.
On Twitter today, I saw where Chilling was talking about he's, tired of sitting here watching guys that can't command the fastball. They throw really hard, but it just doesn't seem like they command it very well.
Right.
And I've never understood this, that why can't we do both? Why can't we throw hard and command?
And why can't you? I mean, hard is, if you want to throw 100, fine if you want to impress somebody, but you could throw 95 if you have pinpoint control. That's about as hard as you need to throw, right?
I don't even think you need to throw that hard.
Okay, yeah. Look at Greg Maddux, for example.
Well, him, and there's still guys out in today's game that can really spot it up. And,
no question.
The kid that blows me away is DeGrom.
Oh.
I mean, I love watching. He's my favorite pitcher.
Yep.
And him and the kid from the Cubs, Hendricks.
Yes.
Hendrickson, or
Kyle Hendricks. Yeah.
I love watching him pitch because he's a pitcher.
Yep.
But DeGrom, he's the total package. He's power with command. And he can finesse, he can secondary, and I never understood why we don't teach that.
Yeah.
In the minor leagues, it just seems like it's all velocity and spin rates, and which is all fine and dandy. But if you don't miss a barrel, who cares how hard you throw or what your spin rate is?
Correct. Yep.
So yeah. So I don't know. For me, that's kind of it. And, the swing. Everybody's trying to lift the ball.
Yeah.
Whenever these guys that have never played, the hitting gurus are telling you that, ground balls aren't any good. Soft contact's not good. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know if he watched the Philadelphia game the other day in the 9th inning. They didn't hit a ball they said was over 88 mile an hour exit velocity. Scored 6 runs.
What's the difference?
You choke up. They don't understand because they've never played.
Yeah.
That you choke up and you would extend it back 12 pitch like Nemo does a bunch.
Yep.
I love that kid, by the way. They choke up and they poke and they foul and they extend an at bat to 12 pitches. And even if they strike out or hit a weak ground ball,
you won the at bat.
That's still 12 pitches.
Yep. You won
that's
the
a
at
win.
bat. Yep. He does that 4 times a game. That's almost 50 pitches.
And that plays for the next guy and the next guy and then the next at bat and the next time through the lineup.
Yep.
But they don't see that because their analytics say, well, we're not going to let the starter go see the third time through the lineup anyway, which I think is a crock of bull.
Yeah.
Also,
we'll do a whole nother podcast on that one, Dennis.
Yeah, it's sickening to me. And I had a conversation with Al Leiter.
Yeah.
he and I love talking baseball with Al. He comes up every summer. I coach up in the Cape, and every summer he comes up and talks to my pitchers. But we talk about, what are we doing to kids in the minor leagues? I saw the Rangers just fired their 2 big league pitching coaches, their AAA pitching coach and their AA pitching coach. And I'm trying to get on with those guys. I'd love to try to get into the organization because everything's close to home.
Yeah.
But Al's boy was a first-round pick there 2 years ago. So I was just talking to him, and I looked at their stats. Their AAA, their pitcher who had the most innings in AAA was 120 pitches. 120 innings, and he had 26 starts. So that's 5 innings a start. So what are we doing? Or what are we trying to make? Are we trying to make a Matt Scherzer or a DeGrom? Or are we trying to make bullpen guys and number 5 starters? Because we're not extending them. We're not challenging them. We're not saying, hey, here's 110 pitches. Go pitch a complete game. Let me see how far you can go with 110 pitches. We're not doing that. We're going, oh, God, he's got 5 pitch. He's got 5 innings. We better protect him because he might get hurt. Well, you know what? You're going to get hurt if you play long enough. So quit calling them and get out there and let these kids extend themselves and get a little bit more of a tough streak in them. And so when they get to the big leagues, they're thinking they're going to go 7 innings, 8 innings, finish what you start.
Tell me about that experience coaching in the Cape Cod League.
It's developmental, but we get the best kids. And I had Manoah his last year, whenever he was with West Virginia, he came out there with 1 pitch. He was a good fastball guy that closed the games. He didn't have anything off speed, and he couldn't throw more than 1 inning. We helped him with a slider and a little bit of a change and extended him some. And look at him. That kid might win the Cy Young. For me, it's all developmental. We get up there and I coach just basically what I just told you. We throw bullpens. We learn to command fastball. We take all the analytics completely out of it. We got TrackMan up there, but we don't show TrackMan numbers with spin rate or velocity. I don't care about that stuff. I want to know, can you throw your fastball to the inside part of the plate, to the outside part of the plate, and can you elevate it? And if you can't, then we're going to work on it till we can. I've had Manoah was a first-round pick. We had Spencer Torkelson, first-round pick. Ty Madden, first-round pick. We've had a bunch of guys that every year the following year draft, we have probably 3/4 of our team go in the top 10 round.
Final question for you, Dennis. I want to play a little word association with you and have a little fun. I just want to get your thoughts and perspectives on a few different players or events that happened during your time in career, and whatever the first thing that comes to mind, I would love to get your thought on. Ricky Henderson.
Ricky. Love Ricky. Man, what a player he was. He was kind of to himself a little bit, but man, just an incredible base stealer and very confident in his ability and just an awesome teammate.
Is he one of the type of guys that you could have an in-depth conversation with anyways?
I never did. I don't think so. I don't think that. Yeah, not for me. No.
Okay. Bobby Valentine.
Good manager. Loved his guys. Everybody talks about managers and this and that. Bobby was good because Bobby let me pitch. He ran me out there and pitched me a ton, and I love that.
Turk Wendell. Everybody seems to have a Turk Wendell story. Do you?
Yeah, no, Turk's awesome, man. He was, he kind of did his own thing, but he was always good teammate.
Last one, and we mentioned him a little while ago on the podcast, but reflect a little more. Al Leiter.
Love him. Competitor. It goes back to what we talked about, finish what you start. Every game he went out there, he expected to finish what he started. Just an incredible talent, competed hard. I loved him. I'm just so thankful I got to play with him for 5 seasons. And, he had a great perspective on everything too. Baseball was his job and all that, but he is a really, really smart guy too. We used to have lots of conversations on the flights, and
he loves the game. Dennis Cook has been our guest on the MetsRewind podcast. If you enjoyed this show, we encourage you to subscribe and support MetsRewind on Substack. It's MetsRewind.substack.com. Dennis Cook, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your weekend with your family, and we'd love to have you back on again soon.
Hey, John, thank you very much for having me.